also on the phone. Every vote has to be roll call vote.
Okay, we are live. Marius, could you take a second and ask the folks on the WebEx to respond who is on?
Okay. Who is on the WebEx at this time?
Rob Fitzgerald. John Zaborowski.
Anyone else? Okay, at this time, all of you have seen the minutes from the previous meeting. Were there any changes or corrections necessary? If not, motion by Savage, second by Tufty to approve them as presented. All in favor, roll call. Steve?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Sandy? Tom?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. The first thing we have is, Mike, is he here?
No.
Is he coming, do you know? No. Okay, we can skip and we can go to the audit. Trevor, are you, Joyce, ready? We have Joyce's report also. Okay,
They're out on the mic.
pardon?
Right out there on the mic.
Yeah, maybe in front would be easier.
Perfect. So my name is Trevor Devlak with Mack and Associates, and I just wanted to go through the financial statements for the insurance trust for the year ended November 30th, 2019. Overall, the audit went really well. We issued a clean audit opinion again this year, as we have in the past, and what that means is that we believe that the financial statements in front of you are a fair representation of the activity for the insurance trust for the year. So just kind of going through those financial statements, I'll keep it brief. I just want to look at first at page 8 in the financial statements. And just looking at that, that's really just, the balance sheet, if you will, for the trust. And at year end, the trust had total assets of approximately $23 million, which is an increase of $9.4 million from 2018. However, a big part of that increase was attributable to the issuance of the general obligation bonds that were issued at the par value of $9,195,000 in 2019. So assets went up, but also the debt went up as well in some amount. And then at the end of the year, the net position also increased by about $447,000 from 2018. And then just briefly looking at, I guess the income statement, if you will, looking at page 11, you'll see that total revenues for the year, those increased by approximately $770,000 from 2018. And a big part of that increase was due to a insurance reimbursement received for the trust in the amount of $813,000 related to the 2017 tornado lawsuits. But and on the other side of things, total expenses decreased by about $1.7 million for the year, but and obviously less claims, expenses are going to be decreasing. And then even though total expenses exceeded revenues by approximately $2.7 million, the ending fund balance of the trust increased by approximately $8.2 million for the year, and that was due to contributions from the county and the issuance of the debt at about $9.1 million. So really that's all I want to go through as far as the financial performance of the trust. But looking at our our management comment letter that we include with our financial statements, really the only thing I want to draw your attention to there is item 2019-01. That's a financial oversight and financial statement prep. And I just want to emphasize basically what that means is that the trust doesn't have the internal control structures, but the necessary procedures in place to identify financially significant misstatements in the financial statements. So I'm not saying that there are financially significant misstatements. What I'm getting at, because we did issue a clean audit opinion, we feel that the financial statements are reasonably stated. We're just saying that we believe that those procedures are not in place, to discover or find these things, before they become issues. And also, we issued that comment because as the independence requirements are changing in the auditing profession, whenever we prepare the financial statements, whenever we prepare this deliverable, and we are also auditing that deliverable, we have to issue written communication to the board as well. But with that said, it's we discussed these items with the trust management, trust personnel, and we do believe that they're planning to make some changes to remedy these issues. But with that, I just wanted to say that the trust personnel were great to work with this year, especially considering everything with COVID-19, and they're great about getting us information when we needed it. Overall, that went really well. So with that, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to serve you as auditors for the insurance trust. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Trevor? Joyce is gonna now come on and finish, and I guess we place this report on file first, though.
You can if you'd like. Yeah.
Rob, you have any questions?
Other than, who was presenting that for Mac? I didn't catch the name. Is it Trevor?
Trevor, yes.
Hi, Trevor.
How's it going, Rob? How you been?
Pretty good.
Okay, if there are no further questions for Trevor, then a
Hold on.
motion to,
And I'm fine, Marius.
okay. If not, if there are no further questions, a motion to place the report on file. Motion by Billard, second by Myers. Roll call vote, Sandy?
Aye.
Steve? Joe?
Aye.
Jerry? Tom? Okay. Joyce? Joyce is going, thank you, Trevor. All of you were given the sheet. This is pertaining to what Trevor had said.
So in response to that, in looking at trying to rectify what was found in the audit in terms of internal controls, I am proposing that there be a temporary part-time position, not an employee of the county, but someone that we hired with significant experience in governmental accounting reporting. There's basically 4 projects that I have set up here. The first one is to set up the chart of accounts to allow for balance sheet and income statement and comprehensive financial statement preparation and disclosures. The chart of accounts is designed currently for revenues and expenses. It needs to be expanded greatly. There needs to be a timely transactions defined to allow for accurate reporting. And we need to set up the internal controls, policies established, and education for the Insurance Trust Board concerning those reports and those requirements. Project 2 is to establish a budget trust, not this incorporated with, and this is something George and I talked about, not incorporated with the board budget. It's a separate budget. We need to reconcile capital assets of the county with the insurance company's evaluation, and a spreadsheet of that should be defined. And project 4 is to develop the spreadsheets to allow the creation of the comprehensive annual financial report. And we also have to work within the reporting capabilities of the current accounting software. So, and then also monthly reporting is required, and they can work remotely, which pretty much they can. So it's not that we would have to have space for them, although I have room down there, but they have a network connection that they can get to if they have to. If they need to come in, they can. But for the most part, they could work from home.
And Joyce, did you have any estimate of the time that would take?
Yes, I'm sorry, I apologize. 2 to 4 hours a week at the most. I would think 2 hours a week would be fine to start to get this stuff put into place. We're not talking we have to have it ready for tomorrow. So this is something that they could work on a couple hours at a time. And again, they could work from home, so it could be someone with a great deal of experience, that's perhaps in the Chicago area, that would be able to put a couple hours on this, that I think would be fantastic. They could put the 2 hours together and, work 10 hours in a week. It makes no difference to me as long as the work's getting done. That's what I would be looking for.
So in other words, you're estimating maybe $100 a year.
Yes, yes.
Obviously, that person would have to have special qualifications.
Yes, significant experience with governmental reporting requirements, yes.
In other words, we're not gonna just say, okay, you have.
No, this is not, I would not call this a clerk position that's just shuffling paper or something. This requires knowledge and experience.
You know individuals that would have those qualifications.
I do. And again, I'm sorry to bring it up, but GovTemps has got a couple of people. One of them is taken right this moment, and understand these projects could be independently handled by different people. So if someone can work on project 1, someone else can work on project 2, it's pretty independent. So yes, I have a couple of folks that would fit the bill. One's been a finance director for a couple of different towns.
Sandy?
So the conversation changed or evolved from the last time we spoke, right? Because you had thought you would need somebody part-time, 20 hours a week.
Right,
And you were talking about hiring somebody
correct,
that would be on the county payroll,
correct.
correct? So this has evolved and changed to a
It has.
temporary
It has.
person, and what happens, how long do we keep this temporary person? And once they've accomplished this job, who's going to take it over? I mean, is this, you use the word temporary, is that, you mean you're gonna hire somebody from a temporary service? Or is this a temporary position that's only gonna be in place for a certain amount of time?
I would look at getting someone from a temporary agency to fulfill this.
Mhm.
Number one, once it gets put into place, I think we can look at that part-time person to keep it up to date. But to get this put into place, you must know the requirements that are forcing you to do this. You must understand what's driving all this.
I agree with you, it was something that I had written down that I was concerned about, that if we hire somebody to fix a problem, to me, I was uncomfortable with that, and I was thinking we need to fix it first, and then
Yes, I agree.
get that out, because if we hire somebody part-time, we're talking about a union position.
Correct.
We've got positions already, looking for, and we were talking about $15 an hour. Well, auditors got somebody for $13.75 an hour with a college degree. At first,
Correct.
you thought this wasn't someone who needed a college degree.
Correct.
So this is a big change from what we talked about.
It is. That's why I'm bringing it forward to you. I think that to put this into place, they need to have that experience behind them.
I agree.
And this sets us up for better, we can review what the requirements are after we get this put into place.
And you're telling me right now that there's nobody already here at the county that has the expertise to do this?
But if you've got more time for me, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Well, it's not my position to tell you, what your job is. I'm just wondering under whose auspices does this fall under? If, we were talking about at one point that the trust has to be separate and apart from the county.
Correct,
Correct?
correct,
So this would be a position, a temporary position that the trust would hire, correct? And
Correct.
pay for.
correct.
So up until this point, we had the assumption that these things were being done, correct?
I don't know what your assumptions were.
We had trust in the county that these things, these recommendations were being done. And I was asking, whose job was it to have gotten them done before? Can they do it now so that we can keep this in a position to get it done and then see where we're at? Because I agree, I saw no way that somebody could spend 20 hours a week on insurance trust business doing this. But financial statement, as you know, once you get everything in place, doesn't take long to prepare.
Absolutely, but you have to let me lay the groundwork for you on this. The chart of accounts has never been properly defined to allow for proper recording of the transactions that happen with the trust on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis. That's never been put into place. We have a piece of software that's fairly restrictive on how you can put transactions into it concerning these types of transactions. I'll give you an example. We cannot record a transaction through the software, as an example with the treasurer's office. If we bought a capital asset, we cannot record that capital asset when we buy it. If this software is restricted to recording expenses, liabilities, and that's it.
Is that true for all departments then?
Yes,
So what are we doing to correct that throughout the county?
well, it's the software we have. It forces you to do, as I was saying with like a capital asset. Normally you would debit the capital asset and credit cash. You spent the cash, you got the asset. You can't do that with the software. You have to record it as an expense. Then someone, me, has to go in and transfer that to the capital asset balance sheet account. It doesn't happen through the software. And if you don't know that you're supposed to do that, now let's get a little more complicated about short-term liabilities and what's due on your bonds this year and long-term liabilities. And you start realizing that the software is very restricted in being able to record these things. It
So the-
requires a lot more manual effort.
The internal controls that we need to do that are being recommended are more than just line item
Correct.
transfers.
Correct. It is setting up the concept of your balance sheet and how you're gonna be reporting it, and this is the guide. This is what we're gonna be looking for. And so someone that is $15 an hour, $13.75 an hour, doesn't have the knowledge of what those GASB requirements are to force that reporting to happen.
I agree. I agree. I'm glad to hear what you're saying. It was something that I had written down that I wanted to talk
And I'm
about
glad you
today.
did.
You know, and you're saying that there's nobody in our area that has the experience.
I'm not
to do
saying,
this.
I'm not saying that,
Okay.
but,
Joyce, my question would be this again, I forgot the answer. Why could we not incorporate this into Matt's report? I mean, is that a conflict if they did?
absolutely it's a conflict.
Okay,
They're-
okay, so I'm asking.
So I was just like, the independence requirements between, accounting and auditing. There's what.
Okay.
We are facing the same thing at the county level. We should be preparing our financial statements and the auditor should be auditing our work.
But my question, if that's going to be changing on a county level, can it not change for us? Or is it going back to the theory that we have to be separate and apart?
Well, and George
Has
can
that been
chime in
established?
here anytime.
Yeah. I was hoping to have received the paperwork for the trust, but I didn't receive that, George. Are you going to hand that out to everyone today?
You know something? Let me go get it and have copies made right now.
I would, yeah, thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you very much.
and it's my bad for having not remembered to bring it to the meeting.
Okay, no problem. If if we go out and we have to explain this to other board members or to the community, I like to have something in hand to justify
Absolutely.
what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Absolutely. George and I have had these conversations about the separation of the trust from,
I
the
remember,
county.
and that's what
yes.
drew my question is there was.
So do you guys want to move on with things and then?
Yeah, we can do that.
That's fine.
Okay,
Mike, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I think you're gonna have trouble finding qualified people personally for a small amount of time. I would recommend the trust consider hiring an outside qualified firm to do what you need to do. Because I don't think for them it's gonna be a problem if there's small amounts, large amounts. Just get away from this issue of trying to hire someone for sure.
Right,
Yes,
I
I
see the same
agree.
thing.
Yeah, I think
If a
we're much better
firm
with
that does this would just take on a 2-hour job or
That's fine.
a.
What I don't, and I'm, plug your ears. What I don't want to get into is hiring someone that wants to stretch this out as long as possible. I want the job done. I don't want it.
Bill,
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry.
You don't want them to get a pension on the job.
Trevor
Yeah,
needs you to,
exactly.
Trevor needs you to sign it. I can make a copy for you.
Maurice, I have a question.
Yes,
Jim, are there any other county entities that are in the same situation right now, where they're separate but affiliated with the county that have to do the same sort of?
well, Grundy would be, wouldn't it, Mike?
No, I mean, I was gonna say Grundy might be interesting to see what they're doing.
Don't they have the same situation, Mike?
Yeah, they would have the same situation, but it seems like they've not had the issues that have been brought about today here. Maybe they're being brought about. Maybe the audit profession has evolved in what they look at and how they look at things, and it's forcing everybody and anybody to be more exact, and more transparency is a word that often gets used. But specifically, Trevor, your firm does Grundy as well.
We do Grundy County.
So they would have similar types of conflicts and or
Right.
lack of oversight, but they haven't brought it to their, it hasn't been brought to the attention there that I'm aware of, but I haven't been there for 6 months because of all this.
Right, and I don't personally, work on the, Grundy County, but I know, one of the changes they made last year, some really good up here, they brought it up, finance director type, financial manager type position as well.
They do.
And I can see if, part of what his responsibility with that, and even, I guess more so, I think how much he plays, how much of his responsibility is, there in that response. And I think some of the issue too, and where they're a little bit different as well is, I believe they're on cash basis as opposed to the accrual basis, so there isn't necessarily the needs at year end,
Yeah, that's a major difference.
making certain adjustments there. But I can, certainly look at our reports for them and see exactly what they have going on at Grundy,
Sandy, to answer your question, the closest ones I could think of off the top of my head that could fall into that, we have different, people like VAC that we deal with their levy. They're intermingled, but yet they have boards that make their own decisions, so I don't know, Joyce, if we keep track of all their money, or they do that separate. Health department's another one.
That's what I had
We
written down.
get stuff setting the levy, but yet there's another group that's really making those decisions. Other than that, I can't think of anything that would be similar to this.
I was just wondering, because I had county health written down as possible in fact, but I was just wondering comparable, if they were using a firm already who was used to governmental procedure and reporting for their financial statements and financial obligations, it could be something that we could look
We
at.
could look into it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, without looking into it.
but I agree wholeheartedly. I really think that we need to go to outside firm and get it set up and look into where we need to go from there. Just who, and if there's a temp agency that, does have those sort of folks available, it's something to consider. I always like to hire within the county if at all possible first, but, if that expertise isn't here.
George, do you have those, or are we waiting?
I'll have them down here in less than 5 minutes. They're being copied right now.
Okay, we might do, you wanna wait, well, what do we have that we could do?
I can tell you, there's nothing that's particularly revealing in the articles of agreement and the bylaws, and nothing in there that prescribes how we have to solve this problem. The trust certainly has the ability to bring in outside paid help on a temporary or permanent or part-time or full-time basis. So Joyce's request is completely within the parameters of what the trust is legally able to do.
And it would be the responsibility of the trust, not of the county, right? Since we have the separation.
That's correct, yeah. And I think it should be too, because when it was set up, there was intentionally a disconnect between the powers of the trust and the powers of the county board in order to create this independence by the part of the trust when they are looking at claims against the county. And the county obviously funds the trust through the bond issue and then through the annual levy for the money to retire the bonds. But there is no other direct oversight by the county board. So that good thing led to this unanticipated bad thing, which is that we don't have the kind of level of financial control and reporting that is now kind of required for governments all over the world. Fair statement, Joyce?
Yes.
Okay.
No problem. Well, while we're waiting, why don't we look, Bill, do you have anything on the insurance carrier bids discussion?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of awkward and terribly uncomfortable. As you all know, about 2 years ago, I sold my business to Diamond Brothers, which is a regional insurance agency, pretty good size, with offices in Peru. And they approached me about 2 weeks ago. They want to bid on the insurance. And if you just get down to just the pure economics of the thing, the way they see it, they're making on the consulting services $600 a month, and they would be willing to risk that to write the business for the county at substantially more commission dollars. And I told him, I said, well, you're putting me in a very awkward position because I see it as a huge conflict of interest. Even though I would be fair in any dealings, the appearances and the optics are simply horrible. If you could imagine me preparing the bid specs as an employee of Diamond Brothers, and then Diamond Brothers being awarded the bid, even if everything was above board, I would think any other competitor or proposer would be hollering to high heaven and complaining about the conflict. And so what's the solution to this? Number one, I would have to pull out. I would not be able to continue doing this. And it's something that I just would have no choice in the matter. And then I would consider maybe asking CCMSI if that is something that they could handle, if they can handle preparing and managing the bid process.
George, how did you respond to that after our conversation? What do you think?
I think Bill's suggestion is a good one, and I know we talked about whether he can continue as a consultant to prepare the bid specs, but in listening to Bill and thinking about it, I think his suggestion that he divorce himself from the process is probably the best one.
Rob, did you hear that?
I did.
Can you or could you prepare the bid specs?
Well, we certainly could take a look and offer some input. John and I, Deb Borowski's on the phone as well, as you all know, talked about it at length. So Marty, some of the issues we would have would be conflict in nature with the carriers we deal with and the agreement the company has with the carriers. And that would create, some density, if you will, for lack of a better term, to do that. I kind of mimic what Bill does as well as far as, you know, the connectivity that he has. We would have a little of that, certainly not as much as Bill would, of course, but we feel that we would have some kind of conflict, nexus, if you will. So it's probably not the best idea for CCMSI to make a wholehearted, full-blown decision on that in assessing the bid specs that are forthcoming. We do have someone in mind we would recommend, that John and I work with quite a bit. It's an individual that I know has been doing this for various clientele, which are all public entities, mind you, in the state of Illinois. And he's kind of carved out his own little business. His career started with Arthur J. Gallagher, large broker. And he's been doing this now on his own, excuse me, as an independent consultant for at least 20 years, for the time I've known him. So we could make that recommendation, Mr. Chairman. And we can have a conversation with that person, that individual, and to see if he'd have interest. And I certainly have the experience, capability, and the prowess to do it. It's what he does for a lot of clientele. John, anything else?
No, I think you said it right, Rob. I think we would be facing a lot of the same issues that Bill does on this. And I agree with the person that you have in mind. You and I talked with him. I work with this gentleman on several of my accounts with Rob. He is very knowledgeable. And yeah, I go along with the recommendation on it.
Rob,
One final thing here. I reached out, we have an underwriting department, and we excuse me, we actually place insurance. CCMSI does, you know, not like a broker per se or a diamond agency or something of that, you know, magnitude, but on a smaller scale. If they were to place the insurance, then they could have involvement in something like this, an act like this. That's not going to happen, so they felt, you know, this was not a good idea for us to take on this responsibility from a full-blown perspective. So I wanted to add that piece as well.
if we did something like this gentleman, Rob, is there a certain amount of time he would need to become familiar with LaSalle County and our exposures, our past history and everything? I mean, is there a time to just bring in a stranger? No,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Sure, there'd be some workup time. I mean, we could literally have conversations with them. As far as the exposures, loss runs, you know, these guys are great where they take a look and see for the past, you know, X amount of years. So yeah, there would be a little indoctrination period, but like I said, this gentleman has a lot of experience doing this. So I think he's capable of doing this. I honestly do, you know, with the right amount of time, but it's kind of what he does. I don't know that he's ever done it, you know, from a trust perspective, but certainly does it with risk pools all the time. And he does it with some pretty substantial risk pools, I would say moderately substantial. He does community colleges in Illinois. They have like 16 members. You know, he does a lot of risk pools with county municipalities grouping together, or school districts he does as well. So, you know, combination of elementary and high school districts. So the experience level is there, yes.
I guess another question I was just thinking, not knowing that much about it, why would the bid specs change that much from the past if we've been happy with our coverage? And I think we've done well. What would be changes in specs? What would we demand? Less exposure? I mean, I don't understand what the big change would be.
I personally would always put that question to the county, and I would ask you, I would say, are you happy with the way things are? And here are my recommendations based on the way things have evolved in this
Okay.
country and what the current circumstances are in this country with regard to risk. And then I would say, what do you want to do? And then you would instruct me how to bid it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see the logic in Bill not doing it. And Rob, how long would it take to get this guy in line? If,
I mean, we would reach out, have a conversation with him. We start getting, the various things he requires. I don't personally think it would take him long. I mean, Bill, how long would it take you? I mean, other than the fact that you have an advantage knowing, the trust operations in the county. But I mean, I think, once you have specifications that come in, it's just a matter of time to sit down, review, and make comparisons.
A lot of the
various types of
timeline-
coverages, the retention,
A lot of the timeline, and we're 6 months out, really is to, we have to get information and obtain information, so it's not so much the person preparing the bid specs, it's asking Linda from Ramsey to obtain loss runs for us. It's asking Melissa to put together lists of owned equipment and a statement of values, driver's licenses, and a list of vehicles. All that kind of stuff has to be assembled, put together. So it's really not just the person that's preparing the bid specs, it's the people that are providing information for that person. But I think we have plenty of time. I think we wouldn't even have to advertise for bids until August. And I have a lot, I mean, if we just use the outline of coverage that we have right now, which I've been saying this for several years now, we have very good coverage right now. And I think it's probably a very good template for going forward. I really believe that.
well, Rob, when could you get an answer for us if well, first of all, committee, what do you think? What's your, I guess we have no choice really if Bill's company's gonna bid.
Well, let me ask you this before we continue with this conversation. Bill, can you hear me? Shelby?
Very well, yes, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions, alternatives, beyond yourself, of course, because of Diamond Brothers' involvement, as to someone or some firm capable of this type of consultation?
Well, I was kind of counting on you, Rob. I thought, because I think you guys are pretty capable and very familiar. But I understand what you're saying.
Marius about that, and John, I think we have the wherewithal to take a look at, and make comparisons, certainly of the package policies and the various coverages, and the value, the overall value is what I would be looking at, for the premium dollars versus what, your potential piece of risk is, and the overall value of the package that they put together. But again, we were advised by underwriting, don't do it, because of the carrier's involvement in the agreements. So that being stated, it's kind of a cottage industry that this guy is involved in. He's, he's got a nice business. He's a consultant for, not just the insurance piece and the placement to help them. He works in tandem with the brokers as to what is needed for the clientele. He's got a workers' compensation background, so he understands that he knows a pretty good amount of tort law and litigation. He does pretty well with that. So he's kind of well-rounded. John and I talked and thought he was, an ideal candidate. Whether he's got the time, whether he's willing, or, is another question that we await an answer to. But as far as capability and prowess and, his expertise, I have no doubt.
He sounds expensive.
Who isn't? But when it comes to this, I don't know what he'd be, willing to charge or what he would be asking for. We could certainly, he's reasonable. Let me put it this way, from the perspective of he certainly listens and he understands partnerships.
Linda, did you have a question?
Can you tell us the name of the company that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's called Nugent Consulting.
Nugent?
N-U-G-E-N-T.
Nugent Consulting.
His name is Mike Nugent.
Okay, so then
He's out of Northbrook, Illinois.
so then there would be a fee, of course, to
Right.
do everything. Depending on that. Would he also make recommendations to the board, to the committee regarding if it is the right time to bid due to the current circumstances that we're under with COVID and insurance itself? I mean, would that be something that he would also advise?
Yeah, I think catch up out of that, Linda. Would he be able to advise on what? The right?
If this is the opportune time to go out because of the situation in the country, I think we've already made that decision.
Would he be able to advise on that? Yeah, I think he would. I mean, I was on a call with him yesterday at length, and so he had some conversation, within that meeting on that very topic and the pandemic and whatnot. So yeah, I do believe he could advise on that. Yes. A lot of his clientele, have asserted under commercial property policies the business interruption and extra expense claims. And he's been very proactive, involved in that as far as the coverage determinations on that. And the way the industry is going, the way they're going is that there's no direct physical loss. They're not covering these. And I believe, John, you were on the call too, and he made it quite clear that that's the case. Yeah. So, and that, it's time to go to plan B for, and he's telling his clients all this. That if you need letters of declination, please request and we'll get those out. We work in tandem with carriers, but, if you have to go to another source like a FEMA or another, federal programs or state programs for assistance, you may and likely will need the insurance policy declination letter. So he was well versed in that.
Sandy?
Maurice, and I don't want this to come out wrong or seem ignorant or anything, but could I be reassured that it's not a conflict of interest for Linda, for you even to be a part of this conversation about bids? I know, Bill, you're feeling very uncomfortable about the situation you're in. You will be presenting a bid also, I'm assuming, and you're being a part of this conversation. Is there a conflict of interest here we should be aware of or have to?
Well, we're not I know that'd be a,
That's why I'm asking George.
yeah,
is there a
I thought the
possible
same thing, was you wanted to know the name of the company and that, but
But not just that, it's been a part of the total conversation, and I don't wanna be ignorant, please, I'm not asking this from a negative standpoint, I just wanna make sure that there isn't a potential for conflict of interest for a bidder to be in on the conversations leading up to what we're bidding.
well, then Bill shouldn't be here either, in reality.
Well, right now, yes, and I think that's what Bill's saying, you know, now that he knows that Diamond is going to be a bidder, he has brought that forward and made the comment that I think that I'm in a very uncomfortable position and I should not be doing this.
But is there any conflict now, just in open discussion, George?
Marius, I don't see a conflict. Linda's a representative of our existing carrier who's here to provide information and advice with regard to existing coverage. I think if we get to the point of approving final specs and selecting bidders, then the question becomes more relevant, but right now, I don't think it's a problem at all.
Just wanted to make sure we were okay.
Yeah, I think we're fine, Sandy.
Thank you.
Well, where do we go, Rob?
Well, I think the next step is that, you know, we reach out to this guy if you're interested and gauge his interest and his, you know, timeframe, and if he's willing and able to do this, and then, you know, start from there. I mean,
Is there another alternative?
Bill, let me ask you this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there another alternative for us? Bill or Linda, anybody?
Here's my thing, and gets into the time frame question. We would have to this committee would have to hire this person. This committee would have to vet this person to make sure that this person is going to be doing things the way this committee wants it done. We would, typically, the proposer would come in and they would tell you how they're gonna do, what their process is. Their process might be entirely different than the way you're accustomed to being done, or the way I've done it in the past. That has to be acceptable to you. You have to say, well, and the other thing is that you would want to know how much it would cost. Now, typically, in the past, what happens is the consultant would get up there and say, I will save you on your premium more than what I will charge you. Now, I don't know that the current conditions are like that, not just nationally, but also with this particular account because of the very bad loss history. I just don't see, here's what I see happening. Here is my prognostication. I see the incumbent being stuck because they've paid all these claims. I see them being stuck with probably, they're gonna know that it's being bid, so they're gonna struggle to keep it right where it's at. And I think a competitor knows that. And a competitor could come in for 20 to 30% less and take it away easily because they didn't pay those claims.
Because they haven't had the loss.
Yeah, that's the strategy, and that's probably what I see happening.
Would that not be true anytime a bid goes out, Bill?
Well, when you have those big losses, it really freezes things up. I think the incumbent would be at a severe disadvantage because they paid those claims. However, you know, a competitor is going to trend it, and they're going to say, is there a problem here? We've got these big losses. Are they doing something that isn't right? And are we just going to fall in the line, and are we going to be the next payer of big losses? Because the LaSalle County doesn't seem to know what they're doing with regards to loss control. That's the assessment that has to be made during this competition process. But I think that's what the a proposed consultant would be doing is say, how much should I charge? Because really the rates is what they can get away with. And then they figure, I can sell this if I can promise them that the premiums will be less. And they go by what they see in the current marketplace. This person has a lot of experience going out for bid, and I think this person sees what's happening right now. He may take a look at it and say, geez, I usually get 15,000 to bid these things, and I'm seeing increases. I better not take it. That could happen.
I think it bears the question. I think there's always something to be learned from bidding processes. You know, things that you don't even know you don't know sometimes.
True.
And I think it's a value process and due diligence. Been a long time since we've done this. And it
See
isn't
what's out
knocking
there.
Ramsey, it's, you know, saying, we need to do our due diligence and see what happens. I think it's.
I just look at timing,
Mhm.
and
We say that all the time though. There's never been a good time. I heard this last year, I heard it before the tornado, I always hear it, timing's bad.
I've always said, and if we had a guy who would have given us a binder on time, and we had a guy who hadn't moved us to a risk retention group without telling us, we might still be with a broker in St. Louis. I mean, something happened to trigger that. You don't just do it just for the heck of it.
No,
You
that's
do
not what we're
it,
doing.
you have to have a good reason. I mean, it's a relationship thing.
I agree.
If you've got a good situation, you've got good coverage, you've got a fair price, and everything's, you're just upsetting the apple cart by going out all the time. And we haven't gone out all the time, and I know this is
Correct.
occasionally. But after a while, people get, oh, that's LaSalle County, why should we even bother? They're just,
But it has been a while. How do we know if it's a fair price still?
And Bill, I think you're probably right logically, a competitor would have an advantage because they haven't suffered the losses.
yeah.
My response to that would be, is there such a thing as a guaranteed premium for 2 years like we did one other time? I mean, not that Tokyo Marine's going broke, but it is bad that they suffered all those losses and now we're gonna take advantage, and save 60,000 or whatever we save. I'd like to have, if we did, make someone give us a guaranteed premium 2 years, same.
Yeah. But I would say,
Would anybody do that?
I don't know, I don't think so. The circumstances right now are very erratic. We are seeing increases all over the place, sizable increases, because of the uncertainties in the situation. There's major lawsuits going out now against companies for not covering business interruption because of COVID. And we're seeing it on TV now, but we've been dealing with it for about a month now. It's got everybody scared because they don't know what's gonna happen. You might get companies not willing to bid, but what I was gonna suggest to this committee is we should check on this gentleman, Mike, see what he has to offer, if it's acceptable, move forward. If not, if you want to find one more opportunity, go for it. Like Sandy said, this might be our due diligence part, just looking for a consultant. Because that might be a source of information that might be able to tell us, you guys, it's just not right now.
To go out there bidding?
Yeah, it's just not right.
Anyone have any suggestions, questions? Tom?
No, this occurred a number of years back in the county here with a local school district where they got in a bind. They were going out for bid, and finally the companies came forward and said, we're not going to supply you with a bid anymore. We're not going to do it this often. We want some solid base to know that we've got, we're locked in for a period of time because competitively, it's just as Bill said, that they're gonna lowball you, so to speak, in order to get the business. And then who knows what happens after that.
But
So,
when's the last time we went to bid?
It would have been 8 years ago.
I don't call that frequent.
well, not really, no. But it's still.
Well, the question is, if you look at professional services, which I consider this, and, oh, this probably isn't a fair shot to take and say, but you want professional people, and I knew you were a professional. You want to build a relationship. You want something you want the person that you're dealing with to know your business inside and out and to trust you. And if you were getting a new doctor, a general practitioner every year, or even every 5 years, or a new hairdresser, or a new dentist every couple of years, just to keep them on their toes, I don't know, that's something I don't do.
Well, and I'm not saying we have a bad relationship with Ramsa, and I don't see it should be taken as a negative to go out to bid to see where we are in the community. And sometimes, Bill, long-term relationships become complacent, and we don't always do our best.
Right, I
And I'm
understand.
not saying that's happening now, but I'm saying sometimes that's happening. And in our, you do want professionals, and we've had a professional relationship with Ramsa. But going out to bid is not a negative knock against Ramsa, it's doing due diligence for the insurance
sure.
trust and the county.
Well, sure.
And that's how it should be seen.
But then I immediately jump back in and say, it makes it very easy when that person gives you ample reason, like doing something that's not acceptable, and it's like, where's our binder? It's been 3 months, and things aren't working out here. Then then it's obvious, then it's easy. But just to do it for the sake of doing it, and I know it's not quite like that, not quite like doing it for the sake of doing it. I look at my whole thing and is timing. I just don't know that this is the best time. But I can say this freely because I have nothing to gain by it going one way or the other.
Yes.
Nothing. So,
It's your professional opinion, and I respect
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I respect it.
Anything, George, Rob? I mean, we've really never made the firm decision that we have to go out yet, basically. I mean,
I thought
Oh, I
we did.
was in it. Until I had the meeting with my superiors at work.
Yeah.
I was typing.
yeah,
Bill was ready to present.
Yeah, I was typing. Was ready to go. Yeah, our last meeting, the way I left it with you was, we're gonna go ahead unless something serious
serious
happens.
happens. This might be something serious.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Joe.
we canceled this thing last year.
Right,
Under these circumstances,